Yeah, and so I farm here with my family. So I work in our family business with my two brothers, Tom and George, and my parents, Tony and Sally. Yeah, and we farm together here, growing a number of different things, including winter crops like wheat, canolas that are all dryland, so grown with the you can see. I'm not sure if you can see the cracks in the ground there from where I am. Yeah, anyway, so it's dried out. The crops have used all the moisture in the soil, and we're just in the process of harvesting them now, which we've actually had quite favourable weather. It's been quite dry, which has been good for good to have some sheep and some cattle as well that run on native pastures, and we also grow some irrigated cotton when the water is available to us. And as I said before, we're in the middle of harvesting our winter crops. So this is wheat, and this is what wheat looks like harvested in the bin. Sorry, I've just unloaded recently, it got quite well. We're really excited with our yields after 3 really dry years. It's nice to be harvesting some crops again. We're a bit over halfway through our winter crop harvest, which is good. It's really good for the district. The quality of the grain is quite good, but there are some smaller pinch grains in it, and some areas that have been frosted, and which means the grains freeze in their development and no longer develop. So that is that's a little bit about our farm. And what we do here. I'm not sure if you might be able to see, but you might be able to see. Over there is a cotton, it's a small storage dam, and also an irrigator, like a lateral move, which is very similar to a centre pivot. So we grow 3 types of cotton. It's all the same cotton, but we grow it in different ways. Firstly we furrow irrigate, which means we grow cotton on small hills. Or like small, I'm talking like the same size as you'd have in your vegetable mounds, you'd probably call them, rather than hills, and the water flows down between those every 2 weeks or somewhere in that water. Or we use a big sprinkler, which is a lateral move or a centre pivot, to apply the water. And sometimes we can also grow dryland cotton or rain-grown cotton, which we would hopefully plant into residue like this, straw residue that we a bit like straw in your garden to conserve moisture, to retain as much ground cover as we can. So by ground cover, I mean that stubble residue that you can see there, because that helps us capture more rain, and it also protects the ground from from the sun, and helps water actually infiltrate into the soil, particularly in heavy thunderstorms. So we try not to plough or turn the soil in very often, because the ground cover out here in West New South Wales is really important to us to help retain as much as in April, and Killer Paddock was planted on about the 15th of May, and it's a bit for wheat, but so we generally start by planting canola early in April, or mid-April, probably about the 15th of April, and then through into wheat, and then chickpeas after that. So we finished planting chickpeas this year in the middle of May, or the end of May. And so the chickpeas will be the next thing to harvest. Now the canola generally gets most of it gets kept in Australia and some of it is exported. So canola is grown for the oil content in the seed, which is crushed and then cooking oil. And our wheat, we grow bread wheat here largely. There's also a different type of wheat which is called durum wheat, which goes into pasta. We don't actually generally grow that on our farm. We tend to focus on bread wheat. So which is well, part of it only probably this year's crop probably I'd say maybe 20% to feed the rest of the world. Yeah, and then we also grow chickpeas, which the vast majority of those are exported. We grow desi chickpeas, which are crushed into a flour and end up. They generally end up going into into India and Pakistan and those kind of regions, and generally go into things like dal bread as well. And so our cotton, we grow cotton, and the vast majority of that is exported. And it's exported into countries like China, India, Vietnam, Laos, Indonesia, places like that where it's spun into yarn or fibres, and then a bit like you would see into cloth and typically made into products overseas and then imported back into Australia that you and I and we all wear today. So that's a bit about our product. We also cottonseed, which is the cottonseed. So it's a byproduct, or it's another product produced when we're producing cotton lint, and it's a great stock feed, and also is crushed up and made into oil for typically a lot of cooking oils or vegetable oils. So made out of cottonseed oil. So there are a few things we do on our farm and produce, and where they go to, and also we produce lamb and beef and wool as well. So we have merino ewes that we shear once a year for their wool production, and then we mate them with borderless to rams and produce a meat. Basically, they cross them with a meat sheep, and so that's where we provide lamb into supermarkets that way, and we also produce beef cattle, so which we breed out here, which are an Angus and a Hereford cross of cattle. And so I've as I was saying before, with my two brothers, Tom and George. So I'm the youngest of the three of us. And mum and dad. So we all actively farm together in the business. We've got three full-time employees that are fantastic, helping us get through this harvest, and we've also got 3 or 4 casual guys helping us through harvest to get this crop harvested. So they're all local people that we employ. Which they're really great people, and and really active people in the community, which is great. Sorry about the wind. About our farm and our business. Can you think of anything I've missed, Luciano?
I was just wondering, Richie, if you could tell us a little about, I remember growing up in that area, and the only thing I could see on the horizon was the Warrumbungle Mountains. There's such flat country out there.
That's a really good comment. So to put it in perspective, yes, it is very flat, as you can see on my camera screen now, but it's also, and we're also a fair way away from most of our services. So we're 30 kilometres from our closest town, and 100 kilometres south of that town is 1,000 people. So I'm sure some of your schools might have 1,000 people in them, let alone the suburbs you live in. So we so that's our closest town. Call that a city. So it's it is slightly different out here, but it's a great lifestyle. I love being out here, and I'm really passionate about producing food and fibre for people to consume and eat, because it's a really it's a basic need to have good, clean food and water. And I'm really proud to actually be able to provide that, or help provide that with people. It's been a tough few years. The last few years have been really, really challenging. Because we've had really limited income because of it being so dry. But the season, Australia has always been naturally wet and dry, and at times, anyway, we just make do with the seasons that we're given, and try and produce something. Anyway, I really love my job. I'm doing something different every day, and I've got to work with a really good group of people. And I think there's a really really good future for Australian agriculture.
Awesome. I have another question, Richie. I see there's only a couple.
The questions are good. Keep coming.
I see there's only a couple of trees, but I can see a tree line in behind you. Can you tell me a bit about how you manage the natural environment around your farm, and how wildlife there is on your property?
Yeah, of course. So in the areas that are naturally much clearer, we tend to grow our crops, and then in the areas that generally have more timber is where we graze our livestock. And so our livestock, where our livestock run and eat grass, is all generally native country. So the grasses that have been here for thousands of years, the vegetation, and so that provides a really good natural habitat for all kinds of and often in our cropping paddocks there's a clump of timber that generally is left in place for good habitat for not only for the trees but for birds and for other wildlife. Which are there. We've been seeing a fair few eagles and hawks picking up mice. There's been some mice in the crops, which they've been doing a little bit of damage, and I expect we probably will have there'll be a challenge for next year. We'll have a large area of areas affected by mice, I imagine. So we might have to end up broad scale baiting for some mice potentially, because they can do a lot of damage to crops at any stage of their development, really. So that's we've got a huge amount of natural we've got areas of natural natural country that have a lot of animals and native animals that are roaming the area, which is it's great. It's great to be able to see those things in real life. Might be able to say it.
If I could ask another quick question.
Yeah.
Oh, we're seeing your wheat. That's amazing. So that's the wheat that makes the bread.
Yeah, and I'm just about to chuck it in my mouth and chew it up. You can hear it's quite crunchy. It's really quite dry and hard. It's at about 8 or 9% moisture this week. And so all that happens to it is to go into flour is it's crushed up and and it's milled, like crushed up, and goes into making bread. Or some of it can go to stock feed of lower quality as well. Anyway, fire away with your next question.
My next question is, you've obviously got your work cut out with you and your brothers and your workmates. What do you do to chill out? I mean, we're about to celebrate National Ag Day, and we can sit down and eat all the wonderful food you're eating. What do you guys do? You're 40 k's from your nearest pub, by the sound, or nearest restaurant to go and eat.
Yeah, but that's okay. That's something you get used to out here, is living half an hour's drive away from anywhere. But that's something that we get used to. Instead of having traffic, we just have a few more kilometres to drive. So it's so we'll go to local pubs and local restaurants or friends' houses and socialise just the way that you would in Sydney. It's or any other place in the state or the country. It's we just make do with what we've got, and we spend time. We spend a little bit of time in the car, but it's there are some really great people out here, and we catch up frequently when we can. Unfortunately, in this harvest period, not unfortunately, but we're just as it is what it is, that we're really quite busy, and so we've been harvesting for 3 weeks now, and we've probably got another. Well, we've probably been harvesting for 2 weeks and got another 2 weeks to go. So during that time, we're working really quite long hours, often 15 or 16-hour days, and no weekends, which is a little bit challenging, but it's really rewarding to be harvesting some great crops. And the reason there's sort of such a rush is because the crops can get damaged by the weather. So if a rain event turns up, or hail or wind can often damage either the quality or knock the grain to the ground, which means we can't harvest it and it goes to waste. So we're generally quite pressed for time during harvest period to get the crop harvested as quick as possible.
Wonderful. There's a couple of questions from participants today, Richie. I don't think you can see them, but I'll read them out to you if you can't. From Felicity, was there an expectation that you and your brothers take over the farm, or did you have a passion for it?
Hi, Felicity. No, there was not at all an expectation for us to take over the farm. Like, my parents really encouraged us to do what we wanted to do. At one point, I wanted to be a physio for the Wallabies, for the rugby union side, but that dream fell away. Anyway, and I actually left school in year 12. I finished school, and then I actually came out and worked on our property for a year, and actually made sure that was what I did want to do before I went away to study agriculture at university. I did agricultural science at Sydney University, and stayed on campus there, which was a really great experience, and I learned a lot and met a lot of people. But there was no expectation at all for me to have to come back to the farm, but I chose it because I thought it was a really viable career for me, in my future.
Fantastic. And there's another question from Felicity. Are most of the farms around you, around your area, also diverse in their farming? Yeah, they are. I often joke that we are jack of all trades and master of none, but that's just a joke. But we're really typical of our region. The central west of New South Wales grows a really broad range of things, and which most of what I've listed today, among some other crops and some other and a really small amount of horticulture like orange trees and those things. But it's a lot of businesses are diverse because of our diverse climate. You don't like to use a few different things. If some things don't go as well and some things go better, you end up averaging okay out of it, and that's what we try and do, and that's our business. But other people do things differently. But I'd say we're a relatively typical business of this region. Fantastic. Another question: has studying agriculture at uni changed any of the practice that your farm uses?
I think it has for sure. And as a business, and as a farm, we're really trying to we're really progressive and trying new things and trying to improve our practices all the time and growing better yields. Definitely the things that I've learned at university have helped our business, and also it also helped me learn how to learn. And I know that seems silly, but helped me learn to how to research and
learned how to decipher what things are important and what aren't in the agricultural sphere, probably.
Fantastic. I've got a. Have you got another question, Jenny? I've got a couple more.
I'll let you go for it for a while.
All good. So in terms of technology that you use on your property, what sort of technology do you use for sowing and harvesting and managing your crops and your animals?
Yeah, so we have a huge amount of technology on our farm. That little white box on the top of the header there is GPS auto steer, and you can see just on the left-hand side of that is a camera for a camera screen, so I can see inside the bin as I'm harvesting and how full I am. We also use remote monitoring on some of our crops. Remote monitoring on some of our crops and also on our irrigators. And also we've got things like soil moisture probes, which read moisture in the soil and help us as to when to irrigate. What else do we have? Anyway, there's some examples. I can't think of any more. Oh, and GPS on our tractors that steer themselves, and remote monitoring of our tractors and all of those kinds of things as well.
And does your harvester monitor your yield over a paddock?
Yeah, it does. Sorry, I'm just had to jump down off harvester. Have you still got me there now?
Yep, we still got you.
Sorry, I just had to swap. My brother just jumped on the machine, so it won't be stopped for too long.
Okay.
That's all right. It's what was the question again? Sorry, yield monitoring. So we capture all the yield data of our of our crops. And we actually analyse that and work out where areas are of the paddocks that are limited. Or not performing as well, and we actually go to those areas and try and improve them, make them better, because there might be a soil constraint somewhere, like something slightly wrong with them, or not enough fertilizer, or they might have some issues like that we try and address. So we're often looking at our yield monitoring, and it creates a big, pretty colourful picture that across the field, and so you can see that there are some areas of the field that really perform above average and some areas of the field that really perform below average. So it's, anyway, it's something that is interesting to watch. Sorry, someone's trying to call me on the toy. I'll just leave them alone. Sorry. Righto.
I've got another question from Felicity. Does the GPS box mean that you don't need a driver of the harvester?
No, that's a common misconception. The harvester, it's not as simple as just steering it. It's they're really quite a complex machine to set up. And to ensure that you're getting good quality grain out to actually to make sure it's performing correctly.
Yep, you're breaking up a lot there, Richie. We can't make out what you were saying. He should have stayed on top of the harvester.
Sorry, I'm just standing on the back of the ute now. Is that any better?
Oh yeah, that's much better.
There goes my brother away in the harvester. The other one's just over here and about to unload. So this, that's the harvester's full, and that tractor has a bin on the back of it that we call a chaser bin. So they just get to stick out their auger, and we do a practice that's called unloading on the go. So we actually unload the crop while we're still, the crop that's in the bin or the wheat that's in the bin while we're still harvesting. So the tractor will pull up here, pull up here next to the harvester, and they'll both travel along at the same speed. And put the weight out of the header into the chasing bin.
Yeah, you were breaking up
So
again there,
the
Richie.
chasing bin will then run that weight. Righto. That's a bugger.
That's better.
That's
better.
You still there?
Yeah, I can hear you now. That's perfect now.
Right. So yeah, we're just unloading the harvesters, just unloading on the go there.
Yeah, no, you were breaking up again. Yes, that's a perpetual issue about access to phone networks on farms and in regional areas. It's perpetually an issue.
Yeah. It is, isn't it? I'm standing on top of the ute with my arm as high as I can in the air.
Right.
What about, were you any better back in here now?
That's better. Yes, you're clearer now. Yep.
Better?
Yeah, that's better.
Oh, right. That's
must
that's
be a
good.
bad
So
time
I'm
of the
South
day.
Wales. Yeah, it's a bad,
like
it's a
bad
bad area of the state.
And any other questions?
I was going to ask Richie what was in his tucker box for lunch. I know my favourite thing sitting on a header was putting oranges inside my drink 10-litre container. I was just wondering what Richie's favourite tucker was for Smoko.
Oh wow, that's a new trick. I haven't learned that one yet. I'll have to try that. We're often so sandwiches on the header for lunch, and then a few treats or a few snacks, or packets of chips, and often some drinks with some caffeine in them to keep us going sometimes when we get tired. And we're also eating dinner on the harvesters as well. So my mum Sally's bringing out dinner and feeding our whole harvest crew. So we're eating dinner on the tractors as we're going, which is it's great. It's really, really nice to have a warm, hot meal while we're harvesting.
So I'm guessing then moisture isn't as big an issue as it was in the past, so that you could take the wheat off into the dark?
Yes. That's right. Yeah. So we are able to, we're nearly harvesting 24 hours a day. So both my brothers are on night shift, and I've been driving the header on days along with one of our employers. So we're harvesting for more than 20 hours of the day. So which is pretty it's pretty hectic really. We're pretty busy, just in the rush to try and get the crop harvested.
Yeah, totally. And how do you manage your breakdowns?
Well, we do a lot of maintenance pre-season. We do a lot of maintenance pre-season. So we try and make sure that we don't have too many. Sorry, my phone just fell off the dash there. We try and make sure that we don't have too many breakdowns yeah, but when we do, we try and fix them as quick as as quick as we can. Often with people running to town for parts or getting mechanics out to help us repair machines, because whenever we're not harvesting, a day we're not harvesting is a day more likely that we might get damaged by weather.
Mhm.
Yeah. Richie, there is a question in the chat box asking whether or not there's plans to increase the internet reception. I'd certainly say from an industry perspective, we work closely in our policy teams, and there's certainly some movement on microgrids and getting better service into the regions, but it's very slow in coming. Do you have an
Yes.
update in your local area?
Oh no, our services are relatively challenged because Australia is such a big place, and it's hard to get connectivity to everywhere. So it is a challenge for sure. And so we often have mobile boosters in our vehicles to try and give us some more reception, so that we can make important business decisions and things while we're still working out in the field.
Yeah, totally. And I think this final question really does hit at all our hearts. We've all been touched by it. So mental health. How in your area is there support? Are there things that are working out there? Have you been affected by it? So mental health is a really big issue.
Well, absolutely, yeah, and particularly, in rural Australia, as much as anywhere. Look, we often the isolation is a little bit challenging. Well, and the season, and because we have to deal with what Mother Nature provides us, sometimes that's really great, and sometimes it's really, really challenging. Like the dry period of the past 2.5 to 3 years has been it's been really, really challenging. It's been my most challenging period since I've been at home farming. Which anyway, you have to you have to remain positive and only just worry about the things that you can control. That's probably what we try and do. But there are some good services out here. And as much as anything, it's about staying connected with your friends and talking. It's a really good idea just to talk to someone to go through, or what or you might be able to help them with some of your past experiences, or if nothing else, it's always better to talk about things than it is to find. When we get a break, we socialise and catch up with friends and talk to our friends. We often, when we're on the harvesters or tractors or doing other things, we often ring our friends and family and spend a bit of time on the phone anyway. Trying to manage that, because it's a really important issue. For regional Australia as well all of Australia.
Thanks. And look, I know there's some amazing programs out there. One that I'm quite of is one called Are You Bogged, Mate? And that might be something that the schools might like to look up. Are you bogged?
That was the brainchild of Mary O'Brien. It's a brilliant initiative, and she's doing a really good job with that. About and the Are You Bogged, Mate is really a metaphor for are you stuck, or are you struggling mentally, as compared to actually physically being bogged in a tractor or a harvester or a vehicle. It's a really good initiative to try and encourage people to keep talking. Keep talking to one another and helping each other get through challenging times.
Yeah. Do you want me to keep going, Luch? There's one more question.
Yeah, there's one more question. I've heard that drones are being used on cattle farms in the outback. Do you utilise drones?
Yeah, we have a drone. We often utilise it in wet weather, like surveying our crops as to whether they've got water damage and that we need to to go and like help clear some water or try and get some water off fields, or yeah, some other areas is some other times we use them is when we're windrowing our canola. We will often put a drone up and have a look and choose the areas that are representative of the paddock that are ready for harvest time. Yeah, or often in seed establishment or germination. If we're not happy with the germination, we can sometimes get a survey done by by a drone. There's a really small amount of agricultural spraying done by drones, but yeah, that's really limited and really early days, I think. And some mustering of livestock happens with drones sometimes as well. Yeah. Anyway, they're definitely a place for them in agriculture. I think it's probably a growing space. Yeah. I definitely think it's probably a growing space, but sometimes because of their weight and their size, they are limited to what they can do sometimes as well. But they're a really handy tool for specific jobs for sure.
Yeah, one of the other areas that they get used in cotton farming recently is the release of beneficial bugs. So, one of the ways to combat, bugs and that sort of thing in your crop is to get more beneficial good bugs into your crop. So they actually physically release those by drones.
Yeah, that's right. So beneficial insects, which so they often go and eat other insects to survive. So and those other insects are generally predators to our crops. So things like caterpillars are often pests to our crop, and there are some or aphids and ladybirds eat aphids, and there are some predatory wasps that actually lay eggs inside of caterpillars and kill the caterpillars, which actually help our crops. So yes, it's beneficial insects, and spreading them by a drone is a really good way of not trying to avoid to use pesticides and using a natural way to fix a problem with insects. That's good thought.
All good. Any other questions? So, Richie, I've got one question. If there's a young person out there who would like to look at work experience or getting involved in working on a property like yours to get some experience and ideas on how they might get the qualifications and experience of working in the various industries you're in, what sort of advice would you give to a young person who's interested?
I would, I'd really try and talk to any of the contacts that you have that might be involved in agriculture, and try and see if you can go out and spend a week with them, or spend a few days or a weekend, and try and help them on the farm doing the tasks that they're doing, because as you know, there's a broad range of skills involved in agriculture and being a farmer. Like, it's not just about driving tractors. Like, there's a huge or mustering stock or doing those things. Like, there's a huge amount of different careers, like including fixing machines and and doing data management on computers of some of this yield data and those kinds of things. So there's a really broad range of skills that are needed in agriculture, and we are often looking for people, or just agricultural in general is often looking for people to join us, because we are generally short-staffed and need a hand, and are really looking for young people, or for any people who are interested in agriculture, and that's all you have to be, is interested, because as long as you have the right attitude, you can be taught what you need to do. So it's it's definitely an avenue that I thought was a really or will be a really good career for me. So I would just get in contact with with someone that or someone or cousins or aunties or uncles, or a friend that you met that's from in the country somewhere, and they might be able to put you onto someone who'd be willing to have you, because it's we're often looking for people, and with a bit of training, you can be, very valuable.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks so much, Richie. That was sensational today. And I really appreciate your time and sharing your world with us. And in the spirit of National Ag Day, that was sensational. It really
That's
was.
fantastic.
So many
Yeah, well,
different
thanks very much, guys, and I really enjoyed talking to you. Yeah, and it's a really, I probably would just leave you with at agriculture is a really, yeah, it's a fantastic career. Like producing real goods that are consumed by people, like food and fibre, is something that I'm really proud of. And you know, I think if you're at all interested in agriculture, it's a really good place. It's a really good place to spend some time, I think. Anyway.
Thanks, Richie. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. And thanks, Jenny from Cotton Australia. Thanks for connecting us up with the wonderful Richie and his fantastic, passionate world of being involved with agriculture. And so it's fantastic. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys,
Bye
very much.
all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.